How about you just tell us briefly about your background history, maybe in a public school, teachers or situations that led you to do what you do today?
Well, I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. It was totally racially segregated into black and white. It was not just a matter of the racial separation, the resource separation. Often the black schools would often have one book for 6 students, so we couldn't take books home for homework. We'd use books sometimes 3 or 4 years after whites had used them. It was a degrading situation. Black teachers made less money than white teachers as a matter of law. We went to double shifts, 8 to 12, 12, 15 to 4, because there's not enough room in one school, so we had to do double shift for one school. They were horrible conditions, but there were teachers who motivated us to use education as a lever, as a weapon to break out that cycle, that we could dream and imagine beyond our predicament, that we were down. Even in a hole, you can dream of being on a mountaintop. In jail, you can dream of being free. So we were taught to dream. So out of those conditions, at some point, when we could not use public facilities in 1960, we sat in at the public library. We were jailed, but the drama around our being jailed excited everybody. I mean, our parents were afraid, they were moving, and the ministers were moving, the community was upset, the press was moving. But the raw innocence of the rightness of our cause made everything change. And so we were jailed, but we were vindicated because the public library, of course, eventually opened. And then I continued. And then the right to vote, March and Selma, 1965. So I began working with Dr. King, and we continued from public accommodations, the right to vote, open housing. He was killed, which inspired us to fight back and take it to another level. So in many ways, this quest of fighting for social justice and dignity has been my life's work. But what strikes me at every step along the way, change or lack of it came when students came alive. When students retreat into vulgar language and retreat into self-satisfaction, retreat into narcissism, retreat into private pleasure over public change. When students are too drunk to be alert to fight back, we all lose. When students are alert and driving and fighting to make things happen, the whole society, because most adults, face it, are in debt. They have obligations. So sometimes it's the freedom and what we call the shameless idealism of students that makes the whole world come alive. That's why I want you at the school, while we fight for social justice at the State House for the teachers, also fight for academic excellence here. It won't do us any good if we get the right to collective bargain and you drop out of school. Right. We fight the right to collective bargain and you lose your dream to go to college and make a contribution. And so we have to have this combination of fighting for academic excellence on the one hand and social justice at the same time.
Right, right. You touched the aspects of students. Switch gears, I know being a reverend, you've worked with many youth organizations. When you see students, you know, in the community here in Madison or all over the country, banding together in solidarity, fighting against a cause, how do you feel? What do you see in your mind?
It makes I get a great sense of joy, because I know that when youth begin to imagine that life beyond high school, some people cannot imagine life beyond high school, so they drop out. When you drop out, what do you drop to? They drop into drugs, short-term pleasure, long-term pain. Those in jail, 90% of high school dropouts. 80% in jail on nonviolent drug charge. There's a 75% recidivist rate. So what do you drop out to, on the one hand? On the other hand, when students began to imagine beyond high school, I am going to college. I'm going to master a subject that matters. I'm going to advance my lifestyle beyond what my parents was. I'm going to use their love and their help and their shoulders to go forward. I'm going to end war. So students in Egypt said, we can't adjust to tyranny anymore. And they began to fight back, not by shooting, just by nonviolent resistance. They followed the Dr. King, Mahatma Gandhi model. When students in Libya who are facing violence today, yet they fight back. They resist. In South Africa, they resisted Nelson Mandela. And so the Madison struggle is in the great tradition. Madison will be a frame of reference for a long time. And I think what's impressive to watch teachers fight back. You're the ones who are going to have to face enormous student loan debt. So when students fight back, boy, that combination is a winner.
I know there was a question out there by the media. There are many political activists and teachers and some parents who think that students should not be getting involved in this fight. This is not our fight to fight. What do you have to say for maybe some people who feel that way towards their students should not get involved, or this is not for a student's fight to fight?
Students are citizens, and students are our hope for tomorrow. If you graduate from school and can't get a job, you're a student one day, but you're an adult the next day. You're a student today, but you can be a registered voter on tomorrow. To come out of school with a guaranteed debt without a guaranteed job and have to go back home to live, it's not a good deal. So if our students leave school and join the military and put on a uniform and go to kill or get killed, which that's heroic. If they choose, without putting on a uniform, to fight for justice at home, that's heroic too. So we fight for justice at home as we fight for peace in the world. Students, to me, life is like putty. You can shape your own world. We redesign our world. We could use any library. I mean, the day that Dr. King gave the speech in Washington, people of color from Texas across to Maryland couldn't use a public accommodation. We couldn't use a single hotel, motel, or library. Most of us went to jail. We changed that. The day he spoke in Washington, we couldn't vote. We changed that. We didn't have open housing. We changed that. 18-year-olds didn't have the right to vote. We changed that. So you have the power to change the world. Now, if you are out protesting, rioting, and self-destructing, self-degrading, I would discourage that. If you're fighting for jobs and justice and health care and education and peace, that's the right fight.
One last question. As we watch the media and we listen to the radio and we see what's happening in Wisconsin, we know that what's happening here is a birthplace of something new, and it's spreading all over the country and even all over the world. Now, there may be a student in Washington, D.C. or North Dakota or maybe Morocco or Italy who's seeing what's happening right now, and maybe who's experiencing the same thing that we're doing. What would you say to a student who wants to make a difference but doesn't exactly know how to get started?
If you have a legitimate cause, fight back. You know, most of drug consumption is by young students on high school and college campuses. And so if you consume drugs, people in Mexico and in Afghanistan, the terrorists make a living off of our appetites. If we change our minds about drugs, if we see drugs as the enemy and not each other as the enemy, we have the power, students have the power to put drug terrorists out of business. Their business depends upon your appetite. And so if you can imagine without weapons a revolution in Egypt where they neutralized the military had to join the protest. It was so righteous. That fight, we've lost thousands along the Mexican border the last few years because of trying to fight each other to get our appetites. But if our drug appetite ceases, we end that war along the Mexican border. The chief financial industry for the terrorists in Afghanistan, they don't have plants. Their plants are poppy seeds and our appetites. If we change our appetites about drugs and our values about drugs, we have the power to change the whole world by destroying the demand for drugs. It's one thing to try to destroy the drug fields with chemicals. It's another thing to change the drug fields with our minds. Right. Strong minds break strong chains. And I can tell you that the American South changed because students changed their minds. South African apartheid ended because students changed their minds. We have the power right here to support collective bargaining so parents can have security in their work. That same power can be used to register and vote. That same power can be used to reduce student loan debt. That same power can be used to destroy the drug flow that's undermining our minds, our bodies, and our streets.
That's all I have. I want to thank you again for coming. It's been
I
a
want to
pleasure.
thank you. Are quite an interviewer, man. You're the man.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good job.